dun, dun.
I'm Shira from Board Game Co.
Nope, he's still coughing. You have to wait till he's done coughing. Are you done coughing, sir? Now you can do it.
Hi, I'm Shira from Quack & Co.
Quack & Co is not a thing unless you search for it. I am Alex from Board Game Co. And...
I'm Jesse Anderson from Quackalope.
Yes, this is our... I don't want to say review. I'm going to say first impressions of Resident Evil.
That's something we do on Quackalope.
Well, the reason I'm doing a first impressions, the reason we're doing a first impressions, is not for lack of trying to play this game more, but rather this is a Kickstarter. This is coming to Kickstarter, and there'll be a link and all that stuff down below. But this particular copy of Resident Evil only has one scenario. A scenario that I've played twice, the same scenario, the scenario you've each played once, and that does limit our ability to call it a review, because one...
It's a little hard to see how the campaign develops, how the story progresses, where the bosses and kind of the puzzle escalate.
The variability that will come.
That being said, I do think the preview they've given us, while being an introductory game, does set the framework for what players can expect when it comes to the mechanics and sort of the game experience.
Yeah.
So,
you were saying?
The variability that will come with the box I was just piping in, that
Yeah.
you can't see the variability or the different types of characters and what each faction, let's say, will do, the different types of zombies. We had, I think, three different types. We had the big guy. Did you not put out the big guy?
I didn't put him out right now. He's in the box if you
He
want to grab him.
falls.
He falls.
So, this guy, that was the one I was thinking about. So, we have him. We had the guy that you shaded a bit.
No, he's in the box again. I just basically said... Oh, no, he's over there. You see, I can't even tell.
You can't even tell. He's going to be different, but you have the three different types, how they all act differently. I'm assuming the scenario comes with a whole bunch of other types of zombies and big bosses to fight.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is Steamforged Games' third deep dive into Resident Evil. They had Resident Evil 2, they had 3, and now they're back to 1. And if 2 and 3 are anything to go by, they're going to have a bunch of stuff. They're going to have a bunch of scenarios, they're going to have a bunch of heroes, they're going to have a bunch of zombies, a bunch of weapons and gear and all those things. A bunch of really everything. But we, for this particular thing, only got to experience a little bit of it. Now, I guess we haven't really done an overview. We should probably do a bit of an overview of the game. Overview of Resident Evil, this is a bit of a dungeon crawl-esque experience. You'll have your heroes, you have your particular scenario goals. So for instance, in the tutorial, the scenario is just basically to escape, but that involved finding a key, which was somewhere in the mansion, and we have to go wandering around and finding it. Along the way, you'll encounter various baddies. Your heroes have 4 actions every single round to utilize towards your objectives, and the zombies don't really react on their own turn. They react after you do what you're trying to do. So you do, which might trigger the zombies doing stuff, and the zombies are not particularly nice. They like to eat you and chomp you, and you have to be very mindful with your 4 actions, how you utilize them, all while the tension deck slowly creeps down, possibly causing you to run out of time. Either that or your heads get bitten off. Or you can win. You can win. That's also a possibility. That's basically a high-level overview of this game. Anything key I missed?
Anything key you missed when it comes to... I mean, it is... The nature of the game is going to be a campaign-based game, right?
Yes.
So it's a dungeon crawl that journeys you through a cooperative story.
Yep.
Outside of that, other than mechanic specifics, which I think I want to save for when we're actually doing a deep dive into this,
Yep.
I think that's a really decent high-level overview.
Cool. So with that, we covered the basic overview, a bit of background of the campaign, the history of the game, and all that stuff. So let's go into our first impressions, what we think so far based on this one scenario dive. Starting with yourself, what do you like about this?
So what do I like about this? Well, I want to start off by saying I completely underwrote this game the moment I started pulling things from the box. Now, I haven't actually played the previous 2 games that they've produced. I'm interested in them now, to be fair, which is maybe a little bit of a spoiler. But when I started pulling things out of the box, I became concerned because it is Resident Evil, and I grew up playing Resident Evil. And when I look back at the old games of Resident Evil that I grew up playing, that I have a lot of nostalgia for, I don't necessarily want to see those pieces of artwork or those clip art pieces of, a key or a sword or a gun chopped up and put onto cards here in front of me on the table. It's one of those scary things when you see a video game art style brought over into kind of a flat, non-3D setting.
Yes.
And yet, this was really surprising. This had a lot of twists and turns. It had a mechanics engine that was really rewarding. It rewarded you being strategic with your resources, just like the video game enhances, or specifically bullets was the thing that we kept running into.
Yep.
It had good and honestly some really, really great moments where strategic choices combined with a little bit of luck, with some nice dice rolling, made some really, really big events that, again, felt very familiar to how I would want to and did experience the video game when I grew up playing it. And then combined with that, some of the dungeon crawl mechanics. For instance, the biggest thing I think we're all going to touch on is the fact that things only act when you have open doors or open rooms to draw their attention, meaning you can start shutting off and closing different parts and elements of your map as a way to not expend a resource, or you can put yourself in a little bit more of a vulnerable position by using your blade as a way, again, to not expend resource. And those decisions, while right now in the prologue, they aren't overwhelmingly deep, they are really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And you're coming into this with no Resident Evil
I
experience.
have no Resident Evil, so I'm finding it very interesting. Do you have experience with the game?
Minimal. So I guess let's cover some background about general experiences. You've played Zombicide. We'll compare it a bit to Zombicide in this. You've played Zombicide.
Sure.
You're okay with it. You tolerate its existence.
I want to like Zombicide.
Okay, so you want to like Zombicide. You like Resident Evil. You're coming in with liking Zombicide.
Resident Evil, the
video game. I grew
Yes.
up playing
Yes.
and have some really fond memories of Resident Evil, the video game. In fact, during our gameplay, there was at least a moment or two where I was like, this is what happens next.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is what happened next.
Now you're coming in...
I'm coming in no video game experience, having not even knowing what Resident Evil was.
Or what video games are, for that matter.
Or what video games are, for that matter. Yes, however, I do love Zombicide. It is one of my favorite games of all times. So I am definitely going to be comparing this to Zombicide.
And I'm a little bit in the middle. I'm a huge fan of Zombicide, right there with you. I've played the video games, though, so I have that knowledge. Not a lot. I can't even remember which one I've played, but I know I've gone wandering around the Resident Evil world at some point and been short on ammo and backing up slowly while shooting zombies that aren't killing them so much as pushing them away, but I've been through that path at least one time.
Like, honestly, my best experience with a video game was the movie that we watched for movie night this week.
Oh, interesting. Free Guy. We just watched Free Guy.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that was kind of like my intro to video games. I'm like, oh, this is what a video game could look like, except I'm just watching it being played.
Yeah. So you're pleasantly surprised.
I would say higher than pleasantly surprised. I was genuinely discouraged when I started pulling things out.
Yeah.
And as we kept playing, became more and more involved and invested, to the point now where I'm curious about the older versions of the game and really excited about what this one is promising.
And where are you?
I am a little disappointed.
Okay.
And also kind of anticipation a little
Okay.
bit. I'm curious. I'm curious to see what can come. But I am disappointed in the general experience I first had.
already.
Yes.
Well, what did you like about it?
So, the mechanics that Jesse was mentioning, the ability to be closing doors, opening doors, and actually just closing in zombies, and then they don't activate, I find that really intriguing as just a mechanic and a way to spare your ammunition that you do need in the game. Because in the beginning, you just shot off all of your ammunition and had nothing left, and you just had a gun.
I mean, nothing left is generous towards the
Nothing.
end of the game.
You had nothing
I
left.
hear what you're
and
saying.
so the ability to open and close the doors, it's really different than line of sight. Line of sight is anything you see or anything that sees you really activates. This is completely different and similar.
Well, to clarify just one point, line of sight when shooting still relevant. Activation is not where. Yeah.
Usually, but like in Zombicide, if the enemy can see you or is within range or hears you, then it
Yes.
activates. It doesn't matter if there's like really stuff in the way. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting mechanic that is very different from Zombicide, which has me intrigued. But fighting didn't feel as exciting. Leveling up did not feel as exciting.
Okay.
Being able to search in Zombicide, going through those gear decks, finding things, trading, equipping, and then having those moments where you take out like an abomination is epic.
Okay.
And that was some of the excitement that I missed in this game.
Sure. So for myself, and we'll get into what we didn't like in a second. For myself, what I liked is going to more align with yourself here. I walked in, and I had the same issue you had, by the way. Steamforge games, in general, for context, I think when they put out their own IPs, their own art, I tend to love their art.
Sure.
When they're they're attaching their things to video games, the other Resident Evils, the Monster Hunters, when they have the IP around it, I find myself not loving video game art in the games.
Well, and it's funny because I more directly know them
Yeah.
as the company with some really beautiful games out
Yes.
there. And so me not even like thinking about the fact that there are and there was a reason for why they only have limited use or limited freedom when it comes to assets they can use. It is
Yep.
in no way their fault. And I'm sure if they were able to redesign or draw, they might do something like that. However, I'm sitting here expecting one of their beautiful works of art, and I pull it out and I'm like, oh no, what are we getting? What are we getting? Mechanics save me.
And it's fine, but I do want more when it comes to that kind of concept. And so I kind of have the same impression, and especially coming in with my love of Zombicide, I expected to play Resident Evil and be like, okay, that was fine, and then move on from it. I didn't expect to be far more intrigued, which is where I ended up. I love the open door closing mechanism. The fact that you have to be in control of the map. It's not about taking out hordes. And yes, I do love taking out hordes of zombies in Zombicide, but the flip side is, if this were compared to Zombicide, then I likely wouldn't keep it. I'd probably just keep Zombicide. The fact that this is a different game is exactly what has me intrigued. The fact that every single zombie is a threat, every single zombie has to be managed. The decision of when to shoot a zombie, when to run past the zombie, when to close a door behind a zombie, when to group up, when to split up, all those things are totally different decisions than they are in a game like Zombicide. And I like that mechanism.
Well, and one of the things that I don't know that we fully emphasized is you were doing things like running into a room, closing the door behind you, and then we would activate, giving us time to react to what you just saw, but without them actually moving and attacking you, because it's your turn that triggers reactions based on what can see you. That in itself is such a cool puzzle, because we almost have this whole pause where we can like skirt around the outside of the room or get into position to save your butt when you come running through, and that feels good.
And then past that, I will say, and I have some things to talk about in the what I don't like section, but I did like, while I miss the sheer amount of searching you have in a game like Zombicide, I did appreciate that every single search in Resident Evil, at least in the scenario you have, almost feels more impactful. It feels like everything is meant to be found and is structured around that, and therefore almost ends up being cooler, because it's not just the luck of the draw of a giant deck, it's these things are meant to be helping you in your journey.
So that's something that I would actually dislike. The fact that every single thing was positive and you needed it to progress. It wasn't like it was a surprise. It was like, okay, this is going to be something positive that's going to help me on my journey. Oh, the key is going to be one of these things. It took out an element of the surprise. When you're going through the deck, you can kind of come up with like bad things that happen. But I did like, so then touching upon decks, that was an interesting mechanic of the all clear
the tension deck.
That was an interesting, how there was the green level, which is completely all clear. Yellow is kind of something bad could happen depending on what you do on your next turn or the next player's turn, and red is like something really bad.
All the doors open, the zombies swarm you.
Bad things really are happening. So that's an interesting mechanic that is different, but the searching just felt a little bland. It's like, okay, yes, I have to go pick that up if I want to succeed.
Okay, fair enough, which I guess...
I'm curious when it comes to Zombicide. Zombicide I would consider more of like a open table skirmish against zombies. It's not as much of a dungeon crawl. You have room exploration to a degree, but it's kind of a one-shot, whereas this, the campaign nature of it...
So one-shot versus campaign, yes.
Yeah. Well, this is, I think, more true-line dungeon crawl, because you really are moving room to room to room, unveiling and getting from a start point to an end point. Whereas Zombicide has scenario-based things, and I understand some of them can be more dungeon crawl, but some of them can certainly be less.
Some scenarios are a little bit more wandering around, some scenarios are more focused. You have to make your way here, pick up an objective, pick up a key, make your way there. They vary by scenario.
But there's a campaign in the newest Zombicide that has come out as well.
Yeah, although not a fan of that campaign.
I would just say...
No, but I'm just saying that there is a campaign existence.
The nature of the high-level things that you're looking for may exist here, just driven slower, because people are expected to play for 12 or 15 hours, whereas Zombicide gives them to you all in that 2 to 3 hour period.
Now, if I recall correctly, by the way, I believe this is 18 missions. I believe that's what the campaign is. 18 missions of progression as you go through it.
And that's not including expansions, probably.
I don't believe that's including expansions.
Cool.
And I could be mistaken about that. Check the campaign page, but I'm pretty sure that's what they said. But that's the what I like. So we've already kind of hinted or touched upon what I don't like, but let's go ahead and get into it in a little more detail. What do we not like? Which we've touched upon some things, but what,
Do you have anything?
Let's give it to Alex first. He keeps tossing it to us.
So I'll do this. What I don't like. So Shura's actually talked about most of the things I don't like in this already, and again, I am directly comparing to Zombicide for a bunch of these things. That's more my experience. So I'm kind of focusing on the areas where it surprised me, the areas where it almost let me down. I don't like the lack of character progression. I don't know to what degree these characters upgrade or adjust. I don't see an upgrade path on them. The characters just seem less interesting to me. They're fine, they have their abilities, but there doesn't seem to be a degree of escalation. Now, that might work well for it in the campaign. You don't have that degree of overpowering, but the characters are just less interesting or rewarding to me. I don't like the fact that you don't have the freedom to just search. Like you said, while I like the importance of an item that comes to the table, I don't necessarily love the almost predictability of everything that's showing up and just the less wild nature of what goes on. I think those are the main things I don't like. What do you have?
I think the biggest thing that I don't like currently with what we have would be something that is just really a request that I'd like to see more of, which is going to dip into what Shira's talked about, really room exploration and the feeling that you're in an environment. I'd like to be able to not just open doors and search A, B, or C. I'd like to be able to like shift furniture or position myself strategically, or make tactical decisions based off of the environment we're around. Which is something we might see, but if you're playing off of kind of old school Resident Evil, then again, it might not be something we see. This really could just be a go down a hallway carefully, specifically to pop some zombies in the head or push them over to the side to skirt past, grab some items, and continue making it forward, which is fun, but maybe doesn't give me as much of an environment feel as I would like.
One thing that I do like, I know, I'm completely just going against everything, all your order. I'm going to talk about the things I don't like, and the things that you do like, and the things I like, and the things that you don't like. I like the corpse mechanism. How the corpses can actually turn around and respawn as a full-fledged zombie. So back to the things that I don't like. I don't like the character progression. The minis. Also, the minis seem a bit bland to me. And once again, I'm comparing to Zombicide, which is by CMON and has epic miniatures.
Yep.
These kind of, like this one, really is very precarious.
Prototype.
Okay, but I'm just saying, with the current experience that I have, I would like to see some more details in the monsters, the minis, the zombies, that sort of thing.
And this goes back
Knowing
to
the company, I think you'll get that.
Okay.
So I don't know if you will.
Really?
This goes back to the IP nature of things, the intellectual property. They don't have necessarily the freedom that they might apply to a game like Bardsong. They're tied to what the game approves. Even something like this Creeper, which looks way too familiar to regular zombie, I know they're looking into what they can do there, but it's not a simple design change of, we'll just make it more different. It has to go through an approval process. It has to go through a queue of
But knowing Resident Evil, the opportunity for some really crazy kind of cool level zombies,
those will have.
I think
Yes.
I think you're, even if you can't get free from the IP, I think you're going to find good quality miniatures coming from the company as a foundation, paired with an IP that has some really cool things that'll look cool on the table.
I'm not dinging the material. The material is a good material for a mini, but I would like to just see some more.
More fluctuation.
So yeah, I'm going with you guys. I want to see more. I'm curious what the campaign is going to unlock. I'm curious what the stretch goals are. I'm curious what the deluxeifications might be. It's intriguing because I have to separate it from Zombicide. Yes, I'm comparing it so much, but what you were saying, it is an entirely different game.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's going to stay for a bit.
I saw you pick up the dice there.
So I just realized halfway through that we never actually used red dice, and I was like, wait a second, did we play wrong? And I'm like, nope, these weapons use blue dice. We just happen to have red dice that have different symbols in them that we didn't explore.
So
I just noticed.
The dice are interesting because they are kind of your luck position, right? When you're firing a bullet, when you're trying to take a shot, when you're trying to do damage or dodge or evade, you're going to be rolling dice. And dice introduce the opportunity to feel like you're being screwed or feel like the game's a little bit too easy because you rolled a perfect set of sevens. I feel like I should be more bothered by the dice than I actually was. I feel like the balance of the luck in this game was pretty good and pretty decent, with the opportunity to get some really great pot shots to like explode a zombie's head. That's 1 in 6, but happened often enough that it was rewarding and felt good when it happened, but never was guaranteed. Combined with the opportunity to just push them back or manipulate them,
Push them through a door, slam it shut behind you. There's things you can do.
There's things you can do, which is kind of surprising because normally that would be something I'd be hitting the game on.
Yeah, usually I agree with you. Usually I like mitigation with the dice.
And the
fact that there's only one hit on it was surprising to me. I was like, 1 out of 6, how many times are we actually going to kill zombies? But we kill them surprisingly enough. And also the weapons, I'm like, it's 1 die. 1 in 1, like, you're just rolling 1 dice and it feels very anticlimactic. Sometimes with zombies, you're rolling like 5 dice at a time and you're like, did I get 4s, 5s, 6s? Do I see a little target
The
symbol?
shotgun felt good. And the rolling, the rapid fire, oftentimes felt heartbreaking.
Yes,
because you just wasted 3 bullets.
Like,
but you do have a little bit of mitigation when it comes to pushing your luck, but not a lot when it comes to controlling your luck.
Yeah. As far as what we can see others not liking, and I think let's go straight to what you just said, which is the dice. I'm with you. It didn't bother me in this game, but the dice roll a lot, and you may not love the fact that you might kill a whole bunch of zombies when you get lucky. You might kill very few zombies, and the zombies might be slashing you. You might be getting away.
You might feel like you're wasting all of your ammunition just rolling blanks.
Oh, he might feel like he's wasting all his ammunition. Yeah. Gameplay over on his channel, by the way. Make sure to check that out. But yeah.
It was a fun gameplay. One of the things that I'm curious about to see whether or not people like, and I know I'm going to be counter to both of you, reading a bit of the flavor text and reading the story and having that supplemental just constant flow of what's going on set the game for me, right? In the way that a classic dungeon crawl should, the way that kind of Resident Evil does with the atmosphere, the music, the tone.
Yeah.
You skip over all of that.
Oh, I read the first 4 or 5 cards. Also, if you watch my gameplay, I read the first, 15 cards.
Okay.
But I think I actually like the cards, all these, All clear. All appears safe, but you don't dare relax. In this haunted nightmare, the slightest lapse of concentration can lead to an untimely demise. If you are to make it out alive, you need to keep moving and stay on your toes. Anything can change in a split second, even in a quiet place like this.
I was pleasantly surprised that all the all clears were different.
Almost all of them.
They had different text. You saw some that were the same?
There were one or two that were the same.
So, like, they most of the time have different text on them. The yellow cards also have different text on them. It's interesting.
I know. I read them. And honestly, that was one of the things that I was excited about as we started reading. And I was
did
going,
start reading them.
Different.
I was like, I'm a hybrid kind of between you two. I do like some of the flavor that sets up the game, but then as we start getting into it, I want to get into the mechanics, and I want to just keep progressing and moving faster. So then I start tossing it out a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I did in my...
It sets up in some anticipation of like, oh, this is the tone. Oh, there's stuff lurking around. We hear sounds.
Okay. In my first gameplay, I did exactly that. I read all the cards while we had like an empty pathway of zombies, and then suddenly there were 3 or 4 zombies, and I was like, I'll put the cards down now. I want to shoot things.
Yes.
So what I was saying around those cards, though, was specifically, I think this game is going to be the best if you're leaning into and exploring every little bit it gives you to feed into the environment and the story that you're getting. It's not always necessary, like you display in some of your gameplays where you completely snub flavor text.
Yes.
But I do think that if someone comes into this and they don't give the flavor text the room it deserves, they may have a little bit of a lesser experience when it comes to on-the-board presence. So if reading annoys you, or kind of taking the time to pause and consume a card annoys you, I think you're missing out on something.
Yeah, that's reasonable enough.
One thing that I'm curious about what they're going to do, the symbols on top of these cards, they were referenced a couple times, but I'm curious if there's going to be more interaction with them. The searching, the damage, it's referenced a couple times, but I want to see more with that.
Yeah, I think they will. I just don't know to what extent.
Yeah.
For myself, the thing that I do want to touch upon for what might be a concern for you is the nature of this map that slowly unlocks as you go through it means your first play is going to have a drastically different level of surprise than your second play. Now, I've played the exact same mission twice, and I can tell you I enjoyed it both times, but it was a different experience. I definitely enjoyed it more the first time when I'm watching this map unlock when I don't know what's coming. Knowing what's coming, and it's not going to be exactly the same, the way zombies spawn, what spawns, what happens in this rooms, where the equipment all are, things will be different.
That deck, we had a whole bunch of bad things happen right in the beginning, whereas you had different bad things happen later on.
All later on for me, yeah. So there's differences for sure, but in terms of replayability, I believe you will enjoy your second and third and fourth play, but I think each play will be lowered a bit just because you're used to it.
I'd completely agree that the first play was really cool as we were unveiling and figuring out what we could do. I kind of do want to play this one more time to perfect my movement through it.
Okay.
Like or teaching someone. It was fun to watch you teach. There was good moments there and you had fun with that. But for me, I would approach this one more time as a puzzle of, all right, 2 shots here, move the zombie off to the side, slip into this room behind one, close the door, right? But then beyond that, after I feel like I've kind of mapped and puzzled out the game they've given me, I don't know that I'm digging back in for the story specifically.
So I don't think I'll necessarily need to. Again, everyone's going to be different in the way they approach games. With 18 missions in the core game, who knows what expansions there are. I believe fully that I will go through Resident Evil from start to finish, call it a day, and move on to the next one, which may well be the 4th one in the series by then, or diving back to 2 and 3, which I'd love to explore.
Well, and I've never played a game 18 times, so...
Yes, I'm not worried about the replayability for myself. That's why it's in the what I can see others not liking category.
Yep.
I'm curious, I don't know if this is just the intro scenario. It didn't feel tense. At no point did I feel like I was in danger of dying. I think at one point I lost 1 health, maybe 2.
That's because Sender was in danger of dying most of the game.
So that's
I got down to 1 health.
Right, so that's the thing that I'm also touching upon, that different player counts. I'm curious what this is going to be best at. I like Zombicide at 3 players, where each person is controlling 2 characters, and you feel like you're always taking a turn one after another. I'm curious, you played this at how many...
I've played this at a 2-player count and a 3-player count. It's worth noting this demo is optimized around a 2-player count.
Which one did you enjoy better?
I think I enjoyed the 2-player count better. But it's harder to say because that was my first play. It was like my fresh experience.
Sure.
So that's what I'm curious about. I want to see it tense. I don't think any of us really used our first aid to give someone health. You used it?
I almost died. She's completely forgetting this. I was down to 1 health.
It was 1 a.m., so...
Yeah.
You could have died and we still would have won the mission, wouldn't we have?
No,
we all have to have...
No.
I don't remember quite correctly, but I don't remember us perfectly, cleanly, 100% winning the mission.
Well, that's because of the 2-player optimization. A little bit of a caveat there.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So maybe I just wasn't in the fray of things as much as you were, but I would like to see it a little bit more tense. I'd like to have to use my first aid.
And I think I would venture to guess as the campaign goes on.
Right, so that's what I was
you'll
saying.
get
I
that.
think it might be just the intro scenario that it might be. But I'm curious.
All right, as far as final thoughts and rating, and again, first impressions, don't feel the
Yeah.
need to rate it. My rating's going to be very tentative, but...
I'm going to give
go?
a descriptive rating, not a number rating. Because
Descriptive, sure.
I can't rate
It's
something
hard,
I've
it's first
played
impressions.
a prologue to.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead. You said you're
I'm-
going to.
I'm- going to.
I'm very excited and more intrigued in this than I am in Zombicide. I have had maybe 5 plays of Zombicide so far, all the time trying to like it. And the best experience I've had was actually a TTS play where we were going through the Cowboys, the new one with the train barreling through town. And
Undead or Alive.
And there I was having fun because the group I was with, and there was like good epic moments, and it was a little bit more streamlined and simplified. But even yet, I'm still kind of holding my breath, waiting for that Zombicide moment to make me fall in love with it like it has for both of you, and I haven't had it. Whereas the prologue to this, unlike what I've had with Zombicide so far, has me really intrigued in what the campaign offers. So I'm talking myself into continue playing Zombicide
Sure.
for your all's sake, because I want to have fun with you two.
It's okay. We
Whereas-
can play it on our own.
Whereas when this one arrives, I think all of us are going to be decently able to sit down, and I'll be excited
Yeah.
about exploring it.
Yep. For myself, I am going to give it a tentative rating. This one, I really enjoyed my first experience with it. Now, I'm giving it a kind of a placeholder rating. Don't take it as a final rating. Right now, I'm placeholding it as a 4 to 5.
Final rating,
really
4 out of 5.
Placeholder rating, a 4 to 5. I really enjoyed this. I do not see it going lower than a 4. It's possible. I could walk into the next 7 missions and they're all terrible and horrible and the worst, and the game never gets better, or
Sure.
all those things are possible. I'd be very surprised if this went down below a 4. Whereas the reverse is I can see this going up. I really enjoyed my first play. Whether it maintains that enjoyment as I continue to go through it, whether that sense of exploration, whether the like that first mission when we found the shotgun was so fun. What else am I going to find in mission 2, in mission 3, in mission 4? What horrible things? What degree of tension does the game add? Do I feel like I'm in danger? All those things. And again, I almost died.
You were very reckless, though. You were a cavalier. You just walked into a room with zombies and I'm like, come eat me.
I am very curious how this iterates. It's a placeholder of a 4. Very possible it can go up. I just need to play more than a single scenario.
You started the game by walking to a door and then going, I'm going to not spend my last action to not
Because
step
I was
through it.
anticipating the tenseness of zombies. The fact that when you open it, there can be an abomination hiding behind it.
If you'd approached the zombies, maybe it would have been more tense.
Zombies are really quite friendly when you
Either
get
way,
to
what are you thinking in terms of your either descriptive or number rating?
So I'm curious if my experience is a little bit tainted by the fact that I have no previous experience with this IP.
Probably.
And so mine is a little lower than you guys. If I'm giving it a number, it's also very tentative. This is the prologue, and we've only played it once. I'd give it a 3. I think it's a good game, but I'm curious and anticipating what more it can have. And based on the fact that you two are so excited, I'm going to be playing it more. I know that.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit more hesitant. I think it's a good game. I don't know how high it'll go. I can see it going up. I don't see it going down to like a game that's not for me. But right now it's a 3. It's a good game.
Wants to goes more. Well, the good news is I'll definitely be getting my hands on Resident Evil 3 because I don't want to wait a year and a half to dive into more of this. So we'll find out more how she feels and how the two of us go along with this game. That's basically our, again, first impressions, very much first impressions, single scenario, all of that, but our takeaway from a game or two of Resident Evil from Steamforged Games, currently on Kickstarter. There'll be a link down below. Until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
Yeah, I'm a duck.
I'm Shira.
And have a good one.